You lock the doors. You close the windows. You check every room. You are completely alone. At least, that's what you believe. Tonight, you'll hear 5 true stories where people thought they were safe inside their homes, until they realized they were never alone to begin with. These aren't tales from a horror movie. They are real events that happen to real people. Prepare yourself, because after hearing these, being home alone will never feel the same again. Our first story begins with a woman in her late 20s, spending a rainy evening by herself. Her roommates were out of town for the weekend, leaving her with the entire house to herself. It was late, and she was getting ready for bed. Like many of us would, she did a final check of the house, making sure the front and back doors were securely locked. Everything was fine. She decided to take a long, hot shower to relax before turning in for the night. The sound of the heavy rain drumming against the roof mixed with the steady rush of the water from the shower head, creating a wall of white noise. But through that wall, another sound broke through. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, coming from directly above the bathroom ceiling. Her first thought was that it was just the old house settling, the wood groaning under the weight of the rain. She tried to ignore it, but then she heard something that made her blood run cold. Breathing, a low, raspy inhale and exhale. It was faint, but it was unmistakably there. With her heart pounding in her chest, she reached out a trembling hand and turned off the water. The sudden silence was deafening, and in that silence, the breathing sound was gone. Terrified, she quickly wrapped herself in a towel, grabbed her phone, and dialed for the police, whispering her address and the situation. When the officers arrived, they began a thorough search of the house. Nothing seemed out of place downstairs, but when they got to the attic, they made a horrifying discovery. They found discarded food wrappers, a dirty blanket, and a small pile of clothes. And leading away from the attic hatch were muddy footprints. Someone had been living in her attic for weeks, watching her, waiting. Next, we have the story of a 17-year-old boy who was home alone late one night. His parents were both working an overnight shift, a common occurrence for them. He was lying in bed, the only light in the room coming from the screen of his phone as he scrolled through social media. Just another normal, quiet night. That's when a message popped up on his screen from an unknown number. It contained just 3 words. "I can see you." He figured it was a prank from one of his friends, trying to scare him. Annoyed, he ignored it and kept scrolling. A minute later, another message arrived from the same number. This one said, "Don't turn around." His heart began to race. A cold dread started to creep over him. Was this really just a joke? Suddenly, he heard a faint noise from downstairs. It was the distinct sound of a floorboard creaking under someone's weight. That was it. This wasn't a prank. Panic set in. He quietly got out of bed, locked his bedroom door, and wedged a chair under the handle for good measure. He called the police, trying to keep his voice steady as he explained what was happening. When the officers arrived and cleared the house, they found no one inside. But then they did something clever. They traced the phone number that had sent the terrifying messages. The phone that sent them wasn't miles away. It was connected to the house's Wi-Fi network. Someone had been inside his home the entire time, watching him from the shadows downstairs. Our third story follows a man who worked night shifts and lived alone. One evening, he got to come home a bit earlier than usual, looking forward to a few extra hours of relaxation before his shift started. He tossed his keys on the counter, slumped onto the couch, and turned on the TV. As he was settling in, he noticed something strange out of the corner of his eye. His bedroom closet door was slightly ajar. He was a creature of habit, meticulous about his space. He knew, with absolute certainty, that he had closed it before leaving for work that morning. He brushed it off, thinking he must have been mistaken, and tried to focus on his show. Moments later, he heard a knock, but it wasn't coming from his front door. It was coming from behind him. He froze, every muscle in his body tensing up. He slowly, hesitantly, turned his head to look back toward his bedroom. The closet door, which had only been slightly ajar, was now wide open. An icy wave of fear washed over him. He didn't wait to see what would happen next. He shot up from the couch, sprinted out the front door, and didn't stop running until he was safely on the street. He immediately called the police. When they arrived and searched his apartment, they found a man hiding inside the closet. He was armed and completely silent. He had broken in earlier that day and had been waiting in the closet for hours, patiently waiting for the right moment to emerge. This next story is particularly chilling. A woman was home alone late one night, reading a book in her living room. The house was completely silent, except for the turning of pages. Suddenly, she heard a voice call her name. It was her mother's voice, but her mother had passed away several years ago. She tried to convince herself she had imagined it, that her mind was playing tricks on her. But then the voice came again, clearer this time, soft, familiar, and it seemed to be coming from the hallway, just outside the living room. She stood frozen in fear, unable to move or breathe. Then, she heard the faint sound of footsteps, and the voice called her name a third time. Much closer now. That's what broke her trance. She dropped her book and ran barefoot out of the house, screaming for help until her neighbors came running. Police were called, and upon searching the home, they arrested a man who had been hiding inside. Investigators believe he was using pre-recorded audio clips of her mother's voice, likely taken from old family videos, in an attempt to lure her out of her room. If she had answered that voice, she may not have survived to tell the story. Our final story is a modern nightmare. A teenage girl was left home alone for the first time overnight. Her parents, though they trusted her, were understandably nervous. Before they went to sleep at their hotel, they decided to check the live feed from the security cameras they had installed in their house. Everything looked normal. The house was dark and quiet. They went to bed feeling relieved. But at 3:12 in the morning, their peace was shattered. A notification popped up on their phone. Motion detected. Kitchen. Their hearts leaped into their throats. They quickly opened the live feed on their phone. The image that loaded on the screen was the stuff of nightmares. A tall, shadowy figure was standing perfectly still in the middle of their kitchen. It was facing the camera, not moving, just standing there. They called the police immediately, their voices shaking with panic. When officers arrived at the house, they found the back door had been forced open. They found the girl, unharmed but terrified, hiding under her bed in her upstairs bedroom. She told the officers she had heard breathing just outside her bedroom door for nearly an hour, too scared to even make a sound. Being home alone feels safe. It's supposed to be our sanctuary, the one place in the world where we can let our guard down. But these true stories prove something terrifying. Danger doesn't always come from outside. Sometimes, the locks on your doors and the latches on your windows don't matter. Sometimes, it's already inside your home. If you enjoy disturbing true stories, real-life horror, and cases that stay with you long after the video ends, subscribe to our channel, because fear is always closer than you think. Thanks for watching.